On my nights, babe, I wish you were around till I'm out of stars. Till I'm out of stars.
What's up, Make Pop Music? It's Austin here from Make Pop Music and Austin Hall Audio and Visual, and we are back for another tutorial. And for today's tutorial, we're going to be looking at how to make indie pop, and that is specifically like artists such as John Kay, Laney, Jake Scott, any of those kind of guitar-forward, ambient synth, big drums, big vocals, kind of West Coast pop songs. We're going to be looking at a song that I produced for an artist named Landon Austin. He's incredible. The song is called Till I'm Out of Stars, and it is already out, so if you want to hear the final full song, you can check the link in the description. For this video, since the song is already produced, we're not going to be kind of taking it step by step. Instead, we're going to be looking at some of the tools and techniques that I used to really turn the song into an indie pop banger, especially kind of looking at the demo that the artist sent versus kind of what we ended up with as the final. So we'll be looking at things like guitar tones, synths that I used. We'll be looking at kind of how I process vocals and kind of how I layered up drum sounds. And that should give you a really good idea of some of the tips and techniques and just kind of things that you can use to really encapsulate that indie pop style that I know a lot of you are always asking for on the channel. So if you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us out a ton. If you want to see more stuff like this, just let us know in the comments down below. Other than that, let's actually hop into the DAW and get started on this. All right, so now that we're in the DAW, let's go ahead and take a listen to the demo that he sent, and then we'll start looking at some of the things that I changed, I tweaked, I got rid of, or I completely added. But before we do that, if you want to hear the song again, you can click on the link in the description. It'll be the first link, and you can hear the song kind of as it ended up coming out. So we're not going to show too many like previews, like extended previews while we do this, so we can actually fly through exactly what goes in. But without further ado, let's actually take a listen to the demo that he sent. So he kind of had a good idea of what he wanted. Basically, he filled out the project form, sent me this demo. I kind of took a listen to it, got some of his references, and then we set up the consultation call. And during the call, I kind of asked him things that he liked, things that he didn't like, things that he wanted to expand on, or things that he was just looking to completely add that he may have not had the means to do. And he basically sent me this demo and said, I kind of like the chord progression, I like the whole vibe about it, but I really want it to feel a little bit more modern and a little bit more current and punchy. And he kind of gave me some of the references that we mentioned in this video. So when I was listening to this demo, I kind of had in mind, how can we turn it into a modern kind of indie pop song rather than what we have here. So I really liked the vocal that he already had. I really liked kind of the percussion and the rhythm of the drums that he had. And I liked kind of what that Rhodes was doing. I didn't love what the synth or the kind of strings were doing at the beginning. So I was like, okay, well, let's get rid of that big kind of string section. Let's get rid of those Rhodes that are so kind of forward in the mix. And I asked him if he would be cool with kind of subbing out guitars. So we had this verse like this in this demo.
It's midnight, it's like all I think about you.
And so I kind of pitched to him the idea of swapping out that kind of rhythmic Rhodes for something like a guitar, and to kind of fill that out with some more kind of retro sounding ambient pads. So what we did was I tracked this guitar right here. And that's just my Fender Strat going straight in and then processed with THU Slate. It's just in that Slate bundle if you're ever looking to use it. And I'm pretty sure I just started with one of their presets and then just kind of tweaked it from there. So it looks like we have some compression, a flanger that's not even on. We're going into this DV Mark. Those are what the settings look like, into the Slate custom cab, and then with a little bit of reverb. Then we're just doing some EQ, and really we're just kind of getting out those lows because I knew that there was going to be some low-end instruments. So double track the guitars, and then I wanted something for a little bit of extra texture, so I actually took the plugin AGML2. It's like a free acoustic guitar plugin, and it's bounced right here, but I played it on some high strings, and this is all just MIDI. Did the same thing an octave lower with that same free plugin. And that just gave me a little bit of texture to kind of add on to that lead guitar. So this is kind of the main element throughout the whole song. So I knew that we were going to have that, and then I knew that we were pretty much going to keep the drums as he had them. I was just going to replace out the samples. So I went with just this super kind of standard kind of hip-hop kick. And then I knew that we needed some kind of hand claps or percussion, but I wanted to do something a little bit weird and different. I didn't want anything kind of too generic. So I threw on a clap and then threw on a ton of delay and filtered it out quite a bit. So we have something like this for the clap. So it's actually just this really big kind of clappy snare sound from our indie pop pack. So I just filtered it out and threw on a really, really big kind of delay on there. And then same thing with this rim shot. I took a rim shot that we had from one of our packs and added RC20. So here's what it sounded like before. So we replaced that Rhodes with something like the guitar because that felt a little bit more indie pop to me. And then I just threw in this little hat loop that I found on Splice.
Wondering if you would come over if I made room for two.
Big delay throw at the end of that verse, and then once I had the guitar and the drums, I knew it was time to kind of fill in with some pads and some synths. So for this song in particular, I actually used my Roland Juno DS88 quite a bit. So I actually just played it in. So any of these that you see that are printed, that was actually just played in, no MIDI, kind of taken as it was. So we had this kind of airy pad right here that I played from the Juno. Then I layered up some Rhodes because I still wanted to kind of keep that textural element from the demo. And you can even hear some of the DC noise in there, but I didn't really mind it. It kind of added a nice little vibe. I added this little bell, also from the Roland. Just a nice little bit of counter melody. The guitar is kind of carrying that main melody and that main rhythm. So I'm really just using these synths as pads or musical beds, but I still wanted some kind of counter melody, and the bell was a really, really nice, easy, soft way to do that. Now we're finally getting into some synths. So I added this brass with Omnisphere. I love the brasses in Omnisphere. I actually just got like a vintage Juno for my birthday for my wife. So I'm going to start using that, but I didn't have that at this time. So I used their Jupiter brass in here. And this is kind of an essential sound for that indie pop. And it's super low in the mix. And we have that nice little counter melody with that extra note there. And then same thing, we have this kind of like little old pad right here that is from Analog Lab. Just again, getting some of those retro sounds. And this preset in particular was the Eerie preset from the CS80. Again, I just wanted that kind of vintage sound because that ties in really well to indie pop, and I wanted something that could bring in some low mids, and that was a really good kind of plug-in and sound to do that. And then I just have this little swelly pad right here. Tracked in from the Juno, processed with RC20 for some extra weird color, and then the kickstart is really what makes this kind of shine. Otherwise, it's just a boring little... So we put all of those pads together, and now we have a cool little musical bed that's not really doing too much to distract from the guitars. All of these sounds almost come together to really just form one cohesive sound, and that's really what I'm trying to do when I'm layering, especially in something like indie pop where you want as few kind of big specific elements as possible, but each element you kind of want to feel really full, really wide, and really kind of encompassing. And so once we had that, that was pretty much the first half of the verse. I knew that we were going to build it up, so we're going to keep those same drums, we're going to keep those same pads, and we're going to keep those same guitars. But I knew for the second half of the verse, we're layering up these vocals a little bit more, which means that we're going to need to layer a few more things. So we went from one single track vocal to triple track vocals right here.
Cause midnight is like all I think about you.
And most importantly, I knew that we were going to pull in some kind of big bass. So I'm just going to pull up this respace that I found in Serum. It's just an Echo Soundworks preset that I kind of tweaked. So we're layering that for the second half. We're also bringing in this one little extra acoustic guitar element, also from that same free plugin. We're just going to play it a little bit faster and arpeggiated. And then I added a ton of reverb and added kickstart to give us some extra movement. So that's going to give us this cool little nice backbeat. And And then all of the synths stayed the same. The only thing that we added was I added this extra little Vox pad right here. Also from the Roland, and then I just added RC20. I added movement for some weird little kind of delay shifting, and then I added Transgate to give me some extra pumping, because it really just sounded like this coming out of the synth. I needed something that was going to be a little bit more short and staccato-y, and then other than that, I just layered up the kick drum right here to give me some extra beef with this kind of wonky kick. It's kind of got this little backbeat. And that was really cool. That added this like almost little like record scratch effect, and then I added a little hip-hop snare. So now with the new snare, the new kick, the new kind of big Reese pad, and then the Vox pad and the extra guitar, it goes from sounding pretty small right here.
We'll come over if I made room for two, 'cause midnight is like all I think about you.
Into this really nice and expansive kind of second part of the verse. So we have a simple verse into kind of this big wide part of the verse, and then I wanted to bring down the energy, and that was kind of what he had in his demo. So we're going into the pre-chorus right here where we're stripping back pretty much everything. Percussion literally just draws back to this kind of like bracelet slam transition from the Sounds of Life pack, and then from a sub drop from a Cashmere pack. Transitions us into this nice kind of big ethereal pre-chorus, and so we just have some acoustic guitar right here. And I wanted it to be this kind of like really warbly kind of trashy sound, so I think I just tracked this with like the first microphone I found, or maybe even my iPhone, I can't remember, and then literally just threw a bunch of RC20 and stuff like that on it. And then we have this kind of guitar pad. Y'all see me do this on the channel quite a bit, and basically it's just where I take a guitar and then put a ton of effects on it. And so this is actually just a guitar that sounded like this originally. So tune it up an octave, throw on a bunch of shit so it doesn't even sound like a guitar anymore, and then we're gonna call that good, and then we threw on these like palm muted acoustic plugs. And that gave me enough movement. Then for the synths, I just needed a couple things. So we kept that kind of airy pad going. Just brought it way down. We kept the Rhodes, brought those way down. Just to give us some musical bed, but kind of keep the dynamic there. And then I actually added in a piano that's not in any other part of the song except for these pre-choruses. And again, all of these synth sounds just came straight out of the Roland and then just had a bunch of post-processing. So for the pre-chorus, we're really going into just a little transition noise, a sub drop, some Rhodes, some piano, one airy pad, and then a bunch of really shoddy tracked acoustic guitar that has a ton of processing. We're going into 3 vocals that are kind of wide tracked, and then there's just a little delay throw here, and then we're going into a really, really, really big post-chorus. So check this out.
So every day I'm searching through the clouds. I change the clocks and it make the sun fall down. 'Cause
so we've really taken a chance to give the listener a chance to kind of catch their breath. And then let's go ahead and listen to what his demo kind of chorus sounded like, and then we'll go into what I did. So again, he kind of went with that string arrangement that I didn't really feel like was fitting the brief that he kind of gave me along the references that he wanted. So again, I just wanted to kind of build up the drums based off of what we already had. So I kept the same kicks, I kept the same claps and rim shots and the same main hi-hat and kind of hip-hop snare. I just turned them all up. This is one of those projects where for some reason I didn't MIDI out the drums, I just actually dragged them in. So I just kind of clip gamed them all up here, and then we have something like this with all of the elements that you've already heard. So the kick pattern is a little bit busier, but then we ended up layering up some fun stuff. So we have this extra kind of crushed percussion loop from Sounds of Life. Some nice little Foley to kind of give us a little bit of extra width and dimension and kind of sauce. Then we have this extra hi-hat loop for kind of accented notes. And And that gives us this nice little extra movement that we don't have in the verses. And then other than that, it's really just some transition noises and this open hat on the backbeat. So all of the drums together in the chorus, super simple, end up coming together like this. And that gave me a big enough bed to kind of work with. And then from there, we're going back into the guitar that you've heard before. So, and we're layering that up with a guitar pad from the pre-chorus. So now we're mixing pre-chorus elements and verse elements. And then we're going again into that kind of AGML. I threw on a ton of stuff for this. So Litter Altar Boy is changing the key of it because it just didn't really fit in the key of the kind of where the plugin works. And then a ton of compression, a ton of distortion, and then this kind of trance gate right here after everything to really give me some cool movement. And that sounds really, really nice with the guitar. It doesn't even sound like a guitar anymore, but altogether it sounds like this now. Then we threw in this really, really fat 808 from Serum. Because I knew that we wanted to kind of go a little bit more hip hop and a little more electronic in the chorus. That was one of the things in his brief. And then for the actual sense of this chorus, everything except for the soft brass you have heard before. So we just have the bell that we used, the brass that we've used, the swell pad that we've used, and the Vox pad that we've used all together like this. And then the only new kind of synth we're pulling in is a soft brass from Omnisphere. It's just a little throatier sounding and a little bit more kind of like nasally and piercing, and I felt like that would cut through the mix really well. In addition to kind of all of the other synths that we had, I felt like we needed something where the high mids were just almost a little gross, just to kind of give us a little bit of that edge. And in the mix, it works. You can't really hear it, but you can definitely feel it. And then the most important part of this entire pre-chorus is like these like kind of hummed ums, something you'd hear a lot in like a Loud song or a Laney song. So we have something like this for the vocals kind of leading in.
Till I'm out of stars. Yeah.
So going into that, for Till I'm Out of Stars, we just have the three main vocals, and then I layered up this low octave here, which is just the main vocal chain with auto-tune dragged down an entire octave. You'll have seen me do it a million times. And then he also sent me these high layers right here.
Till I'm out of stars.
And then just threw on some delay and some reverb, and then gave this a nice stack.
Till I'm out of stars.
And then for these ums, he basically sent me one, and I turned it into this nice little fat stack. So this is what the sounded like when I got them.
Na na na, na na na, na na na. Till I'm out of stars. Na na na.
So it's just a comp of a bunch of different ones that he did, and then I kind of threw on some compression, EQ, saturation, reverb, and delay, and I got something like this for kind of the main center take. And then I wanted a little bit of sauce, so I did the same thing except drug it up an entire octave and saturated it some more. Till I'm out of stars. And it's one of those things that you can hear in the mix, but it's not super audible. And then I added this kind of sidechained version of that main vocal. Till I'm out of stars. And that just gave me a little bit of that sustain over the instrumental, because otherwise it sounded kind of awkwardly dry. Like the idea felt amazing there, but it just didn't have enough kind of length for it to sit in. So all in all, for the chorus, it all comes together to kind of sound a little bit something like this. Till I'm out of stars. And And there's a couple more things that we'll go over that kind of come in later in the song, but I mean, generally that is the meat and potatoes of this entire song, which just goes to show you indie pop is typically pretty straightforward. So we have that main guitar line that then we just layered with some acoustic guitar little accents, but it's really like one functioning element. And then we have all of those different keys and Rhodes and pads that are forming those kind of big sustained chords, all operating as one element. And then we've got kind of that counter lead with the bell. We've got the counter lead with that extra plucky guitar. And then we've got an 808 and we've got some drums. So altogether, there's really only 5 or 6 main elements going through this whole song. We've just ended up layering that to come together to be 85 different tracks. But all in all, as one cohesive thing, there's only a few things happening here and there. Like if I was to comp this down for a live performance or something, this would all come down to like maybe 8 or 9 stems total. And that's typically how indie pop kind of leans. And then going into this kind of second verse, I'll show you some of the things that we start adding just to differentiate it a little bit, because you always want to give your listener a little bit of something new. So we're going back in to things that you've all heard before. So we're going to drop out the bass, drop out everything for about 2 measures, and then we're going to come in strong.
Got fake ones on my ceiling. I touch the sky and baby I still I'm on my last.
So instead of coming straight in with that respace, or instead of leaving out the kind of bass in the first half of this verse, we're pulling in this really short 808, which kind of just adds on to that hip hop vibe that we're carrying over from that big kind of post chorus. And surprisingly, he let me get away with a super kind of obnoxious, ignorant sounding, just huge 808. For some reason, it just works really, really well. I don't think either of us really expected something that gnarly to kind of work for the song, but super far off from his idea in the demo, but it's all kind of similar to, you know, the same realm.
I'm on my last star, and all I can do.
So that's pretty much all we added for that first half, and then for the second half, we are coming back in with everything that you've heard, but I do add these like little airy strings that are from Analog Lab. And these are just coming from the Selena. These are the Air Strings 1, super 80s. And again, I added RC20 for some extra color and kind of saturation, and then I added Transgate. You can see that there's a lot of the same elements on this, and that's because I'm wanting those to all kind of function as similar elements. So a lot of those really big, sustaining, swelling pads ended up getting something like a kickstart or like a Transgate to give them a little bit more movement so they don't just feel so stagnant and so ambient, because we want a song to kind of progress forward, and this song didn't really call for those. If you're going for more of that kind of laney vibe where everything's a little bit more laid back and chill, you're probably not going to need all of these Transgates and kickstarts and things like that. You're able to kind of get away with that more kind of ethereal sound. But other than that, that is the only thing we added until we get to the pre-chorus, where we added these little cello staccato things. And these are actually from Pad Shop. They're like these weird bit crushed program sounds from Pad Shop, which is like kind of a granular pad synthesis. It's one of the stock things that comes with Cubase, and that just layered over with those Rhodes, the airy pad, and the piano that we used in the chorus before, came together to give us this kind of like little extra movement that's, again, not really heard, it's more so kind of felt, and I'll kind of show you all of that together.
So every day I'm searching through the clouds. I choose a clock, saving.
It's just helping us progress just a little tiny bit. Vocally, nothing changed at all. We added in one harmony, and that is the only thing. The mains are the same, and we just added a double take of this.
So every day I'm searching through the clouds. I choose a clock.
Then we're going into the same chorus with the same na-na-nas. The only thing we added in the second chorus is we carried over those airy strings from the second verse, and we carried over the cello staccatos from that second pre-chorus, and then that's pretty much it there. And then we're going into this kind of bridge right here. And the only thing that we're doing from this is things that we've kind of recycled from earlier in the song. So again, it's almost functioning as a pre-chorus where we've got that bracelet slam, that sub drop, and another little percussion transition. And then we're going into something like this. So for this part, the pads stay the same, the kind of bells and Rhodes stay the same, but I did swap up the piano and I added a little bit more movement. And it's live tracked, and I kind of liked how it sounded when it was played a little bit sloppier, so I didn't go in and time align it or anything.
So I'm tossing and turning, nothing is working. I don't know what else I can do.
Vocals are just 3 of the main take and 2 takes of a harmony, and then some delay throws. And then we're going into this last little, there's like a false chorus that this goes into, and I'll kind of show you that. And then for this little false chorus, we just have these claps and snaps. We left out the kick. We brought over the guitars from earlier in the song, those palm muted guitars from the pre-chorus. And then we added in this little short 808 right here. And then the main thing that changed is I have this kind of chorus vocal that is super processed. I had to print it just because it's got so much stuff on it, but I kind of left it to where you all can see it, and then I'll show you. But up until here, it's kind of the normal vocal chain, and then we add decapitator, where we're kind of doing a lot of saturation. Then we add repeater to give us this kind of like slap back delay, and then we're adding a bit crusher and studio chorus just to give us a little bit of crushed and width. And then we're adding a Pro Q just to kind of filter out highs and lows, and then the last little instance of repeater right here, which is just an 8th note. It all comes together to sound like this.
So every day I'm searching through the clouds. I change the clocks and then make the sun fall down, 'cause I'm a nut.
And then we basically did the same thing where we just took it down an octave, and that was pretty much it.
I'm searching through the clouds.
And then we just have a delay throw right here.
I choose the clocks and then make the sun fall down, 'cause
So I knew that we weren't really changing anything fundamentally with this kind of like post-chorus into this last little chorus, but I knew that I wanted something a little different. So between dropping the drums out, dropping everything except that one airy pad, and then dropping all of the guitars except for those little palm muted guitars, gave me enough to work with.
Till I'm out of stars.
And then that is the entire song, and he just wanted to go ahead and have this last little bridge layer over the na-na-nas. And that is the entire arrangement. So super simple when it comes down to the core elements, just a lot of layering, a lot of weird little kind of sound effects and synthesis, and it all comes together to form a really, really cool song. And we were able to kind of take a demo that sounded something like this. With those references of kind of Laney, John Kay, Lauv, all of those kind of artists, and get something that came out like this. And that's it. And that's gonna do it. That's how I produced a song in the style of indie pop for Landon Austin. As you can see, it's not a super complicated track. There are a lot of layers and there are a lot of little things happening here and there, but that's kind of what really helps indie pop, is having a pretty kind of staple and simple key arrangement, and then just kind of filling that in with extra little layers or extra little kind of flourishes here and there. So I hope you all liked this video. If you did, again, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us out a ton. If you want to check out more of our stuff, head over to makepopmusic.com, where you can see all of our other free and paid content. It really, really helps when you support the channel. And then other than that, let us know what you want to see in the comments down below, and we will be back next time. But until then, much love everyone, and peace out.